Yeah, so guys, so I'll get straight to it, and like so I want to like leave some stuff at the end, so to conversation. Um, all right. I hope everyone can see my screen. Yeah. Amazing. All right. It's recording as well. As you go, feel free to ask questions. I'm more than happy to stop and sort of answer them. So the focus for today is like to talk about observability and like how do you do that with LLM apps, right? So I'm going to sort of explore a tool called LangFuse. You probably heard this or some variation of like there are quite a few competitors in the market for LangFuse, and we're going to talk about like why a tool like this would be quite useful, right? So so that's the main focus. Mm, yeah. So just to give a big sort of introduction about myself, my name is Aki. So I've been sort of doing machine learning for the last 10, 12 years. So done a PhD, done a postdoc, and also been in industry. So previously I was head of engineering at a financial services firm. And now I'm currently doing my own consultancy firm called Snapdrum, where we do consultancy for firms to implement AI solutions. I also do teaching on Maven so that I can talk to interesting folks like you. So that's the quick and sort of summarized introduction about myself. I'm super sort of passionate about sort of teaching this about these technologies. And feel free to sort of like ask any questions as we go. Um, just before we start, just wanna sort of do a quick poll. Like, has anyone used LangFuse before? Any LangFuse experts? Do you guys use or like some version of that? Just use the chat, and maybe if you have, like, feel free to come in. Would love to know that as well. Amazing. Right. Think Harish has used it. So yeah, so I think like I'll try to sort of explore a bit more. Hopefully, I wouldn't bore you, Harish, and feel free to sort of bring up certain sort of your expertise as well into the discussion. But yeah, so Hendrik as well. Cool. All right, so I think today's focus is going to be like this. So we're going to talk about what is LangFuse. We'll do like a simple trace demo, and then we'll talk about prompt management, like why and how to do that. And also we'll sort of talk about like running AI apps with prompts, like how do you sort of store prompts and how do you load them up and like how to manage that and how to like do traces on them. And then at the end, we'll do a quick and question and answer session. So like if you guys have any questions, suggestions, like happy to sort of take them. Um, yeah. So LangFuse is a tool. It's open source, and it helps you sort of. So initially, they started off as this sort of tracing and observability tool. So it helps you to like keep track of your sort of LLM calls, whether it's an agent, whether it's a simple LLM tool. You can sort of keep track of what are the conversations and like the token usage, and if you have different kinds of parameters tracked, you can have that with that locked within the system. So LangFuse is a tool, I would say, is an all built sort of a package system that helps you sort of make sure the package that helps you manage the health of your AI system. So these things could be around how the LLM is performing, like the tool is performing. Like if you have some sort of a mechanism like a eval suit to track like with prompt changes, with model changes, how the system's behave performance sort of changes. So this tool helps you do that. So in that way, I think like it's quite great. It also has certain limitations I've seen, like even though it's open source, I've sort of like in the past, I mean, not recently, struggled to sort of deploy that and get it working as with a level of convenience that you may have with the cloud deployment. So it has a cloud deployment as well. So there's a free version that you can use, and you can sort of use that to get to do your hobby projects and things like that. There are sort of like other players in the market. I think that helps you with this kind of observability tracking of your system, and then But I think like this is one of the top three tools out there that helps you do that. But so there are multiple ways you can implement that, but we'll go that to that in a bit to show like what that looks like. And so yeah, so one of the simplest way that you can sort of like implement LangFuse with your sort of system is you can directly sort of import LangFuse. So on the right hand side, you have this Python sort of script that sort of depicts how we can sort of implement that, like for a simple script, sort of simple sort of coding. So you have so from LangFuse, you can import LangFuse object, and within LangFuse, you can import the OpenAI sort of model. So this gives you the opportunity to sort of integrate LangFuse without changing the code much. So that's the beauty of this. So so there are multiple ways to do this. Like this is one of the easiest ways that you can sort of integrate LangFuse into your solution. There are other ways that you can do it, but this is the most minimal way. So like in the future, if you don't want to use LangFuse, you can sort of remove this and just use OpenAI model, and it will work as it's supposed to. So this LangFuse sort of acts as a wrapper around OpenAI, and when you call that, it sort of call OpenAI at the same time. It will call the LangFuse endpoint and sort of the telemetry data, the information that we need to track will be sent to LangFuse service as well, so that you can see them on the deck. So I'll show this in a bit, like how to sort of implement that very quickly. So you see. So what I need to do is like first um, we're going to go to LangFuse. So LangFuse, if you go here, go to let's start from here. So if you Google, so you have the website, and you can see there's a lot of bunch of demos and how it works. And then if you go here, you'll see the GitHub repo, the open source version that you can use to sort of sort of download this and sort of run this locally. That's one option. Other option is to go to app. So if you're already signed in, you can sort of easily go into that, and you'll see like this dashboard type of thing. So you can go to your project, and then you can sort of like see information across. So I haven't, this is my personal sort of LangFuse. I haven't done anything recently, but if you expand it across, there are some like interactions that I've had in the past. So this is the dashboard, and you can customize this a lot. And also you could sort of request charts if you need. There's like a lot of information around the model cost, model usage, and tracers, number of tracers, cost. So it's a bunch of information here that gives you this snapshot version of your application, and depending on how you sort of want to track your system, you can use these charts to very easily understand. Like for example, if there's a spike of tracers, if there's a spike in cost, you can easily sort of track that. And that's going to be quite helpful, especially from a sort of product manager's point of view, or even like an engineer who wants to understand if a system is doing okay. You can sort of do this. Um, and yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, so for us to sort of integrate this, you need to get the API keys. So we're going to go to API keys here, and you can sort of copy these. So if you create a new API key, you can sort of uh, create new API keys, put any name that you like, and then you'll get something like this. You have the LangFuse secret key, LangFuse public key, and the LangFuse base URL. So this will change depending on like if you have a cloud deployment, if you have like a local deployment or a deployment in one of your servers, the URL would change. Right now, you're going to use the cloud service, and we'll sort of keep it as it is. So right now, I've sort of going to use cursor for this. Um, so cursor is one of the IDEs that you can use to um, sort of build application. It's an IDE. You also need to have an OpenAI key. I will get that from OpenAI very quickly. I might need to change this. But yeah, hopefully this will get fixed. I think because these are in strings. These are not in strings. But yeah, I'll ask it to change. Be a bit lazy. I'm gonna grab this. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna let it run. So it will sort of like hopefully build something up, and we should be able to sort of trace it. So we'll just edit that. So I'll let it run. So when you sort of make those calls, like so using this, I can show like what I've done in the past, like what it looks like, a trace. So if you go here, if you go to LangFuse and then go to traces, and let's say last 90 days. So you'll sort of see something like this, right? So these are like the LLM calls that you'll be making, and if you open it up, you can see the entire sort of execution sort of flow, and you can see what was the user prompt, and what was the input, and then like what was the output, and all sort of information is there. And also you'll get metadata that is needed. Some are automatically generated, some are ones that you can add. So this one is, I think, it's coming from some sort of a evaluation I've run. Yeah, this is coming from evaluation. Like if I click something like this, so this is like a LLM code that I've done. So you have um, the prompt. If I click here, yeah, system prompt, and then yeah, so the reply that we got, and this is the question that I've asked. So likewise, you can sort of see the entire interaction. Apart from that, this also brings this massive value set around like latency. Like it tracks multiple information points here, like the cost, latency, the top P, which is a value that helps us sort of control hallucinations to a certain extent, um, and and also the model that was used. So it gives you this like massive amount of data set for you to actually analyze how well things are going, and you can sort of summarize them at a high level. But if you really need to sort of go into details, you can check them as well. So you're not sort of limited by these already like by default sort of columns. You have the opportunity to sort of try and sort of add other columns as well. So you see like how that can be done. So this is like what one of the LangFuse sort of like traces looks like. I don't know if this is, yeah, I think should, yeah. So there's a very simple call that it's trying to make. So we're gonna like try and sort of run it. Um, yeah, it needs to get this sorted. It's installing some dependencies. I mean, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, I'll let it fix itself. So the next thing is so a trace can have multiple observations. So these are like individual sort of steps within the trace. So if you go here, those are observations, and yeah, so you can see these like individual steps which are sort of like which creates the larger traces. And you can also see sometimes if there's a flow, but like this the examples that which are here are very simple enough, but but the things get really interesting if you have like sort of agent that has like multiple sort of pathways, and you can sort of trace like how the conversation sort of went. So this is quite important, like if you don't have like something like um, a line graph that you can visualize these things. So you can sort of like directly visualize your agent really well. And apart from that, like you have a lot of flexibility around the search capability here. So it's still like so you can direct search, and then um, you have like multiple columns here, and on the left hand side you can sort of pick and choose different filters. So the input cost, like if you need to like figure out like what are about like $1. I don't think there's anything, but if you might find something. Yeah. So you can sort of pick and choose like, okay, what are the ones that has the highest cost? So if like somebody who's doing like really good check on the tools, the LLM calls, they can like sort of come here and do this. And I don't know if this worked. I mean, it says it worked. I mean, not sure. Let's see. If I go to tracers, it might take a bit of, yeah, I think this is the one. So you are a space fact bot, tell me a space fact. space fact, but yeah. So this is the current the call that was made. You can see that all that information is here, and that LLM call is here. You can have it in JSON format, like the system call, the user call. So you all have all that information here. So it's quite useful for you to keep track. So let's go back to the slide deck. So yeah. So I think another sort of important thing is prompt management. I just want to like check if there are any questions around like what we sort of discussed right now around LangFuse UI. So I'll pause here for like a few seconds. Let me know if there's a question. I mean, yeah, it's very simple. I think like so. I mean, it comes with a cost, right? Like if we use the cloud services, we have to pay for that services. Right now, I'm running on this hobby sort of tier, so because of that, I can go up to like 10,000 requests per month or something like that. But generally, if you take like a larger tool, there's a cost element to it. But if you host it locally, that's gonna be bit of a challenge because you need to package it, like host it, and then make sure that works. So that's one part. But if you don't care about that, if you just need to like integrate that with the cloud version, it is a very simple thing. So that I showed you here in cursor, you just need to like from LangFuse.openAI, you import OpenAI. Similarly, you can do for Google. So it's quite straightforward. Even like so, like these are for the most common ones. If you need to build something for a like a locally hosted model, you can do that. So there are other ways that you can sort of have the LangFuse object, and you can pass that into LangFuse directly, so that it is handled. So the integration is quite simple. So yeah, I think like just a few minutes of work, and then you can sort of like have all of these information on LangFuse. Does that answer the question, Richard? Amazing. I think there's a question. Please talk about LangFuse setup. Yeah, Raghav, I think like I'll go a lot more in detail in the next couple of slides, like how to set it up, etc. Sumita or Sumita, I think, does it also trace the time of inference? The time of inference means the time it took for the inference or when it
Yeah,
happened. Yeah, so you have latency, right? So 2.56 seconds, I think like this is for the entire call. So I think like I guess this is what you're after. So you have the latency. If you close this one, latency, you have like this latency column like sort of shows like if you look at this, it should be like a relatively long prompt. Yeah, so it does take a bit of time to sort of generate that. So yeah, so generally this is latency and like but it's relatively, I think, tied to the output, the tokens or number of tokens. Like if it is big enough, you can see, and also tied to cost as well. So yeah, I mean, 100% you can track that as well. Um,
awesome.
yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, Harish is 100% correct. There's a detailed documentation on how to use LangFuse SDK. If you go here, LangFuse to docs, you can have this. So you can have everything in detail, like for example, like how to like start tracing and how do you set it up, sort of SDK information, instrumentation. You have a lot of information here, and there are like examples on how to sort of like set integrations and like different ways with Python, JavaScript. You have that information. But the best tool is actually this one. So there's a sort of index, like a LLM index, AI index, like search function that sort of helps you sort of keep track. So I mean, I can ask how to track um, latency of um, echoes with LangFuse. Fine. I'm just asking, right? So it will sort of hopefully it can answer. So it's checking its content. I don't know if it'll understand the question directly, but let's see. I mean, if it is, yeah, so it extracts latency. So yeah, that information, and also talks about like it's time to first token. So that's what they're tracking, like from the initial call, like what's the time it took to generate the first token. That's what they're tracking. And yeah. So it goes into detail. So I highly recommend this like sort of AI tool, like to answer a lot of the questions. Yeah, I would recommend that. And Sangeeta will be discussing how to choose metrics that reflect real LLM behavior. Um, think- I think yeah, we'll go into detail. So yeah, so we will sort of have a discussion around that. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, so I'll go into the drift as well. So I'll show you how to do evaluations on this, like so which could be quite useful. Yeah. Okay. All right. So amazing set of questions. We'll go into detail as we go. Um, and I think so one of the things I want to like cover next is prompt management. So prompt prompting tools. So if you look at like in the past a couple of years ago, like generally prompts sort of tend to sit within the code base itself. So it sort of runs through the entire sort of the software sort of development life cycle as well. But if you look at like AI engineering, so generally what we see is that LLMs, sort of the detaching prompts and the software stack is quite useful because the prompts themselves may not be necessarily managed by engineers. Those are managed by domain experts, product managers who understand the domain much better than the engineers themselves. Obviously, it's not always the case, but this is what I've seen a lot more where that somebody who understands the domain better writes better prompts, so that we can have a really good outcomes. And if you need to do some changes, as you know, like prompts needs to get adjusted depending on changing context. And to run it through the entire software development lifecycle, it takes a bit of time. But what you can do is like, so if you detach prompts from the actual software stack, you can change prompts from somewhere like LangFuse. So LangFuse offer that feature. So you can sort of have prompts within LangFuse and sort of change that. And if you need to do evaluations, you can do that as well. Um, so so if you look at it, so one of the reasons that I highly sort of recommend sort of having this prompt management system is that um, prompt evolution, like so prompts change much faster, and you need to sort of like um, have a system that can sort of evolve with that. And also there are like collaboration challenges, like let's say there's a prompt that needs to get used by multiple sort of solutions that we have it like one sort of a software stack and like the same version at specific amount of like specific point in time you have the same prompt in two solutions and we need to change it if depending on who implements that if it's implemented by two people, so it's like there's duplication, right? And then you start like changing and having these kind of variations to it, and after a few months down the line you'll have different versions of the prompt. So to avoid that, like especially with larger teams, like it's best to like have like a prompt management system. um, and also extension of that is like this having hard-coded prompts. It's relatively sort of hard to change them, and also do redeployment, etc. So as I said, the solution is something like a prompt management system, and LangFuse sort of offers that. And I'm going to try and like show that what it looks like, an extension of that. So like how to use prompts within the application is something using something like this, but I'm going to like show what this looks like, and how to sort of adjust that. So I'm going to sort of go to my line views, and so if you go here, there's say so, so if we go here, so you have this sort of prompts that you can save, and so I've sort of added some in the past, a sentiment analysis prompt. So I'll start from scratch where like how to add one as well. So you can go here, you can add a new prompt. You can have prompt one and prompt one description and this variable. So you can have variables as well. So this at runtime, these values can be changed. So the prompt can be dynamic. So anything that's within like double curly brackets, it's gonna get can be replaced at runtime. And also you have the production label. So when you pull sort of the prompt by its name, you should have your production label to one variation like of that prompt, like one version, and then that is the actual prompt that gets pulled when you set this production label. So for right now, like we have it for this one, I'm going to create a prompt as you can see. So you have the production label and the latest label, and I can add prompt to description, do some changes, and I save it as new prompt, but it doesn't have the production label. So because of that, if we pull this prompt, it's gonna pull this one. So we need to move this to production. So in that way, you can sort of create variations of this. So you sort of like, if you do any changes to the prompt, you just keep adding on top of that, like GitHub, like for code, and it's gonna help you sort of keep track of like the traces and changes that has happened for your prompts. And so if I go back, I want to like highlight the prompt that I had. So sentiment analysis. So I'm going to try and use this with an example, how this looks like. You are a sentiment analysis expert and you have some, so if you get a text, feel free to like analyze that and give the sentiment. So this is what we want to pull, but we're not going to directly copy this. What I'm going to do is like use the sentiment analysis name, and I'm going to ask it to like pull that. As before, I'm going to be a bit lazy and I'm going to sort of pull this. That's great. That um sure to you. So it should like build a quick script and it should pull the prompt from LangFuse and start ideally should get the results back, and that should be logged on LangFuse side. Yeah, let's see. Right. So let me look at the example. Trace the So as you can see, like in this example, it is pulling sentiment analysis prompt. This is the first thing that it does. And after that, you compile that. So this is the step that we replace the variable that we had in the prompt. If you go to the prompt, you see something called text that will be pulling variable, and that is the one that is we're trying to pull sort of pass that information. So this compile sort of prompt will have now the actual prompt itself, and this variable will be sort of replaced by this string, and then we'll send that to the OpenAI endpoint, and so this is the prompt that you're passing in, and we'll sort of see that information on LangFuse side, hopefully. So it might take a few seconds, but the idea here is that we don't write the prompt here. The prompt will get loaded from LangFuse, and if we need to change something, we can directly change it here. I know change the production label. If you go to tracing, hopefully we should have, yeah. So the sentiment analysis has been done. Okay, for this one, yeah, sure, we give the instructions. And for this one, this is the worst experience I've ever had. So it's a negative label. So likewise, for the rest of it, you have done that sort of tracing with LangFuse, and you can see the output in a certain way. So that's the sort of the beauty of prompt management. So you can see there's no like code around managing the prompt here. So that's what I want to highlight here. And go back to the slide deck. Yeah, so the next step is to like properly go through sort of the LangFuse UI, and also going through tracing, exploring data sets, and how to run evaluations as well. So which is quite useful. And I think like it will also address the question Sangeeta asked, like how to choose metrics sort of like that reflects LLM behavior. So we'll go into some like uh, um, LLM-as-a-judge feature, which is something that we need quite interesting. And I'll sort of go into detail about that in the next few sort of slides. Yes. Yeah. So I think like next part of the sort of session would be around the LangFuse SDK, LangFuse dashboard. So we looked at tracing. We sort of went on like look at few traces. We open them and we see like what we can trace. And then another interesting tool here is like Playground. So if you go to prompts, if you sort of open one of the prompts and you can sort of go to Playground, um, and the Playground is quite interesting. It will sort of give you this prompt itself, and either you can pass in a message or um, you can type the message. So if you go to if you look at this tracing, over here, the we need to click here. Yeah, sorry. This one. Let's analyze. We should need this and add this and don't no need of this. And hopefully submit this. Okay, I need to add the key. Give me a sec to add the key. Sec. Oh yeah, sorry. I need to update that. Yeah. So hopefully this should work. Yeah, so you got the results negative. So you don't have to like run the code like so you can like directly sort of experiment here. So I mean OpenAI also has a similar thing, but right now you can sort of use your own prompts and use them from the prompt management system and try and run these experiments with it. And you can change the text here. So you can set a certain schema as well. So if you need like output in a certain structure, you can sort of enforce that and you can do tool calling, like you can like add more features to LLM call here. So the playground is relatively sophisticated. Like these features are not there for like 6 months ago. So they try to add most of these features that helps you um, give you this like one-to-one mapping with like a LLM call and like so you can play around with it. And so you don't have to like run the software like the LLM app, but you can sort of directly sort of run it here. So that's the sort of value of this, I would say. And another feature that I want to go through is called LLM-as-a-judge. I think this is quite important. Um, so LLM-as-a-judge, as you may have already heard about it, it's a way of sort of evaluating the results that come from a AI tool using another LLM. So use a LLM to evaluate another LLM's sort of results. Bit counterintuitive, but if you use either different models or like more powerful model compared to the lesser model, also like similar power, like doesn't have to be powerful. So you can sort of get this evaluated at scale. So let's see how this evaluation looks like, right? So LangFuse sort of provides some of the key sort of metrics that you need to track, like from LLM point of view. And so this is very nuanced in the sense that it will sort of boil down to your sort of applications requirements. Like, I mean, I've used correctness in this case, but it doesn't have to be. So if you go to setup evaluator, you can see these like evaluation criteria is provided. So it's like, so these are provided by LangFuse itself. These are provided by external provider called Ragas, which is another sort of a tool. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, or Ragas. So it's another sort of open source tool that sort of provide these kind of metrics for us to track. So what let's focus on some of them, right? So like the consciousness, context correctness, context relevance. Then you have correctness itself, hallucinations, like whether the answers are getting hallucinated, helpfulness, again relevance, toxicity. So like for example, if you are building sort of a consumer facing application, like things like toxicity, helpfulness, like even correctness, like super critical. So like depending on like application, you probably need to prioritize some of the evaluation because there's a cost involved with it. So you pick and choose like what are the most critical metrics that's going to help you sort of pick that's going to give you the right kind of health of your AI application. But let's look at like what this means, right? So if you select hallucinations, and it's going to give you like live tracing data, dataset runs. So live tracing data is what's coming out of like your existing tracing list. And you can see which are there on the tracing bucket are also here. So you can sort of use that to run an experiment for this given input. And if you got this output, like what does that look like from a hallucination point of view? And so so you also can delays, you can have sampling, you can reduce the size. So like of like amount of data that we need to pick from this sort of data set. And if you go here, this is the most important part. So this is how we sort of pick and choose the data set, but here is like what this actually means. So this is the prompt that is used by the LLM to evaluate this result. right? So if you look at this, you have this description. Evaluate the degree of hallucination in generation on a continuous scale from 0 to 1. Generation can be considered to hallucinate score is 1 if it is does not align with established knowledge, verifiable data, logical inference, etc. So you have this like description here. There are some like examples here to explain what it means. The score that it got, there's a bit of reasoning, so it's like a bit of chain of thought prompting here. And then so this is the sort of um, the input query. So like so it's sort of like preloaded like our query and what it looks like, and and so I think like this is not 100% perfect, but because like we're sort of getting from like traces itself, because there are like commands, like all kinds of like formatting as well. So I wouldn't 100% recommend this, like going down this route unless you have a mechanism to clean your sort of traces in a way that fits here directly. But it is how it sort of like makes it easy to run. But yeah, so you have the query, your generation, and you can execute this. So it will start running, and in a bit you'll get some results around this. And I'll go here to show like an older run. Um, this for correctness. Let's see. So this is an evaluator. I think like if you go to datasets, you'll see the results. So if you go here, so this is a dataset that I have done in the past. Let me see to change the timing. So we can run something again. So I mean, it takes a bit of time for that to come through. It's still running. I'll let that run through. Sorry, there was a question, I think. Yep, for sure. Okay. So these are like the logs of a previous run so that you can see the score that it got. Yeah, this one. So I go to scores, I might see. Yeah, sorry. Um, this is the one we did. That's an older run. I think still the run that we call for is still running. If we go here, so these are like previous run we've done. So you get a like a score for that and the metric that was used. So you have a bit of information around that. So because it takes a bit of time, like sometimes yeah, 100% sure like why this takes a bit of time. But yeah, if it like the if this is wrong, you get something else, but like you have sort of correct value here. So because of that, you get the value as one. Like if it is not the case, you get like a either zero or somewhere lower than that. So LLM-as-judge is quite helpful. Like if you need to like run evaluations. So I think like one way to sort of think about this is like if you coming from a software engineering background, this is like way that you can sort of create these test suits. So this is like way of sort of putting the right kind of metrics in place to measure. So in test suits, we do like integration tests, unit tests, things like that. This is like something of that sort that helps you sort of like evaluate the LLM tool in these sort of like metrics, and it gives you really good view of your how your system is working on. So, so dataset is the place where you sort of create these golden sort of test suite. So what that means is like you can create a new dataset from here. But if you go here, this I've already built this some time back. So the yeah, this is a run that I've done in the past. If you go here, items, yeah. So this is like one item, so you have a text sample and the expected output. Similarly, this one is another text and the expected output. So these are like text and sentiment analysis, very simple examples. But the idea here is that you can, for your system, you can create these input and output combinations and make sure that it sort of represent at least like a good portion of different variations of your system's behavior. So if you create those input and output, like this could be text, obviously, this could be numbers, structured outputs, you can have that. And you can run it through a eval, like what you looked at LLM-as-a-judge. So which are different metrics that helps you evaluate if the output that you got from the system is aligned with the expected output for a given query. So you can do that run. So here, like if you look at it, done some runs. Um, so this a previous run that I've done for correctness. So value is always been one because these are very simple examples. Like there's nothing much that could change. But if you put something complex, depending on the model and the metadata, like things could change drastically. And especially like how you test this is like when the prompt changes, you need to like try and run this again with an existing eval suite so that you understand the deviation of like the impact of the prompt change is not gonna disrupt the system. So you should have like an eval suite here that is going to be like a good representation of how the system should behave and would act when users interact with it. So that's why these eval suites are quite important. And the more you do runs, you'll see these like latency graphs, like the cost graph, the correctness graphs. So always this is the case, but like let's say like you do a massive sort of drastic change, this correctness could drop. Like whether it's dropped beyond your expected sort of threshold, whether it's like 0.9, 0.75, depending on your context. So you can have a good sense here. So that's why you need like these kind of evaluators running all the times. Like when you do prompt changes. So that's the other sort of angle I want to highlight. And I want to like try and stop here and like sort of because there's plenty of stuff that you can go into LangFuse, and I want to like stop here and sort of answer any question that you guys may have. And feel free to unmute yourself and ask or use the chat as well. Yeah, it's a really good point. So I think like maybe I didn't make a good explanation on that, so like due to probably the time limitation. But let me show like what I mean here, right? So like so you have the like let's say you have the the code, right? Like imagine you have like a very complex code here, but at the end of the day, you'll be using certain prompts. So to try and recreate the prompt and like the impact of prompt changes. So that's why we need to write evals. So you need to like um use this like the prompts that you have here needs to get tied to a server test run here. So like you need to create a data set first, something like this that has these kind of knowledge pairs, right? So like the input and expected output of some sort. You'll create these like so I've just created three, but you'll have like I don't know 20, 30 depending on your problem. You'll create like this data set. So this data set can be manually created or this dataset can come through traces. Like for example, if you look at these traces, you can pick and choose like good examples from here. So you just filter them and you can move them to think there was option add to datasets. So if you add to datasets, so you can adjust this here if needed before it goes, and you can either select a dataset or you need to create a dataset, and then you can sort of move this that lot. So if you go here, so this is something done by like a product manager or somebody who have control over this. And in test data sets, you'll have like a item that was passed in right now. So I think I passed in this one, I think. So this trace has been passed in. So this becomes like a test suite. If you think that data set is a that trace is a good example for a given input for an input and output combination, you can sort of track them. So like so you can go to the traces and create that. So when that happens, whenever like somebody does a prompt change or you like even like a LLM change, we need to like there are ways you can do it. Like you can like manually run it like you go as some sort of LLM-as-a-judge, and like you set the evaluators from here like depending on what sort of metrics you want to run, and then you need to run pick the eval run and run sort of experiment with it. So if you go here, so this is not the best example, I think this one for run experiment, there are two ways you can run it via SDK. You can set it up via like Python, like there's documentation around how to run experimentation. You can write something like this. I mean, this is like combination of data. You can use the data set itself. There's an API for us. Let's see. AI for probably give a link for us. Yeah, I mean, Yeah, so it's hallucinated big time. I think it was here somewhere. Um, yeah, so yeah, this one, sorry. So you have like an API tech. If you need to write something of your own application, you can use this and write to run this automatically on a cron job or something like that. Other option is like you can manually run this like via the UI. You go to configure and you can select the prompt, like it's a sentiment analysis prompt. You can pick the version and then you can set the model. Like so, this needs to be aligned with the application sort of OpenAI configuration. Like we can be OpenAI, some other model. So you pick and choose what to set configuration. And if you have like something like structured output that sort of enforces certain pattern of output, like certain structure for your output, you can sort of enforce that. Add a schema here for that. This is like pedantic, like a JSON schema that you can add here. Like that's fine. You go to next, and you can select the data set right now. So the data set that we created here, right? So either manually or from traces, you can set a data set here. And it does check like if the expected like sometimes you have variables in the prompt. You want to make sure that those variables are there in the dataset itself. So that's why this has done a check. Is it okay? Variables and placeholders are matching, so it's all good. Sometimes it doesn't work. And then you check evaluators. Right now, put it for correctness. You can set to hallucinations. Um, so depending on what you pick, um, it will run that. So I set it for correctness. That's fine. Go to next. And you write an experiment names, which is it's very important that you sort of keep track of these experimentations. And then it gives a quick summary on like how this is going to be like the prompt, the model, the data set, the evaluators that you can have different kinds of metrics here, and then the experimentation information. And then you run the experiment and you'll start seeing like a run. I'll try and run this. Um, so it got started. It's going to take a bit of time and like it logged here. And you're going to see the latency of average, cost, average, things like that after this is run. I need to add some information on these charts as well. So then you can keep track of that. Does that make sense, Sangeeta?
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I missed that. Sorry. Yeah. Thanks a lot for the question. It's quite helpful. Um, Anything else, guys? Any questions? All right. So go back, I think the last slide, I think. So we looked at sort of LangFuse, sort of tracing, prompt management, and evaluation. And we sort of like discussed like from the question as well, like how to sort of think about like prompt sort of reliability and app quality via these different mechanisms that we looked at, like how to sort of have the right kind of metrics. I mean, this is a broader discussion, like it's like lightness and it's quite small for sure. But I want to like sort of highlight uh, that this can be quite very intensive. Like you can go down these rabbit holes. But I think like the fact that like the prompt management and the right kind of evaluation is going to help you with the reproducibility of AI projects, like especially to make sure that it sort of consistently behave as expected way. So those are the things that you need to sort of remember out of this conversation and like use something like LangFuse to like have the right kind of information. So I'm going to give you much better like confidence on like how the system works if it is working properly. I think last section is about Q&A. Like feel free to like ask any questions as usual. And I'll also leave my sort of LinkedIn. Feel free to connect. So if you guys have any questions around AI, LangFuse, observability, anything, feel free to drop a message. Would love to sort of have a conversation around that. So this is what I sort of like, yeah, day in, day out is what I think about. So yeah, happy to sort of answer any questions. All right. Feel free to